So there are several different types of learners. There are more than three, but the three that we're going to cover today are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. Classrooms usually have about 29% visual learners, 34% auditory, 37% kinesthetic, which leaves about 30% of a mixed learning style, meaning that they can have either all three or a mix of two. Just kind of depends on the child or the person. All of us are affected by these learning styles, whether it be our own learning, how we teach, or how our children learn. We're all affected by this topic in one way or another. I'm excited to learn more and share more on this topic. I'm going to school for education, and learning how to teach different styles will help me further my career, but also make me a better teacher and exactly how to teach each student so that they understand what I'm trying to tell them. I've researched these in high school, but I'm obviously doing it again now. So I'm super excited to learn more about these. Throughout my speech, I'm going to give you information about each of the different learning styles, how each of them differ, and how to spot the different learning styles in children, and why that's important to know, except for just going up to the child and asking what works best for them, because sometimes they don't know. A visual learner is someone who learns the best by seeing it, either looking at a diagram, picture, written instructions. And an auditory learner is someone who learns through listening. It's harder for them to listen when there's background noise, and they listen to verbal instructions better than written instructions. A kinesthetic learner is someone who learns by moving, whether it be an experiment or materials. They can look bored or restless with lectures or long explanations. And I learn more about that on Kids Learning HQ. The difference between all of these is obviously how the students learn, but how do you see the different learners? How do you spot them out in the crowd? Like if you're teaching, you probably have 24 to 30 students. How do you learn each of their different learning styles without asking all of them? The difference between all of these is how they learn. And for visual learners, you'll notice that they're more intrigued by the pictures, the written diagrams, and directions when they're written down. They're also probably the students who doodle and take more notes than others, just because they learn better by reading back their notes or putting it down on paper. So that is how you can spot a visual learner. The best way to cater to those students are using pictures and diagrams in your lesson, but also frequently incorporating presentations. So instead of you standing up and giving the presentation, having the presentation down so that you can share that with them, and they'll learn better by seeing it instead of hearing it. Statistics show that 65% of the population are visual learners, according to Jake Croman on Entrepreneur.com. Auditory learners are better when with written subjects in lessons and when they're backed up with sound. They're better when listening to lectures and lessons, and they're better at listening than taking notes. So you'll more often see them just listening, not taking notes. So it doesn't necessarily mean they're not listening to you, or they're not going to understand. They're just taking it in their own way. The best way to teach those kind of students is to get them involved with the lecture, ask them questions, have them speak on the subject, and then repeat the lesson to you. So the main points, have them repeat that to you so that you can verify that they have it without those notes, because again, they don't really take notes. You can also ask them certain questions, and that will kind of reiterate in their mind and kind of just put that in there, that's what that specific topic is about. Kinesthetic learners are learners that are hands-on, so they learn by doing. They don't like listening or watching. That's just not how they learn. They find it harder to sit through a lesson, but the best way to teach those students is to act out the lesson. So with movements and like if it's something where they can act it out, then they would probably learn that in that way better. Using games as learning tools, or letting them use whiteboards in the classroom so that they can kind of do what you're doing, mimic you, and that will kind of help them learn that better. And that having them use whiteboards came from Laura Elric at the Rasmussen College. There are multiple different ways that you can change up your teaching or learning styles. You can use flashcards, lists, studying with friends, using music or moving while they study or while you teach. Many different things. When you're a different learning style than others, you have to cater to each specific student. Since these are the top 3 learning styles, incorporating all 3 of these into a lesson would probably be best, so that you kind of cover all of your bases instead of just one. They have options so that they can all get the same information and concept from that material. It's important to know each student's learning style. Not only will that make you a successful teacher, but will also make your students more successful. When you know how your students learn, you can usually solve the issue better when they aren't understanding material versus thinking that they're just not listening or not grasping the concept. You can pinpoint why they aren't because you know how they learn. So I hope that this was informational for you. It sure was for me, and thanks for a great semester, and I'm looking forward to our next speeches.